Come correct or don't come at all.
This is the Hartzog Hustle Podcast.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
And we're talking about the hustle, strategy, and mindset you need to win in the areas of your finance, your purpose, and your future.
Know what I'm saying?
If you have heart and you want to learn how to activate the power of your hustle, then this is the podcast for you, baby. For you, baby.
Congratulations.
And now, your hosts, Anthony and Janilka Hartzog.
This is how it should be done.
So, speaking of courses, we were just talking about to dive into yours.
Well, hold on. Before we get
Education.
to that, but before we do that, what is the cost of a doula? If somebody wants to know, like, how much does that cost generally?
Or range.
It's a wide range.
Does insurance cover it? What are
In
the?
some states now, doulas are being covered by insurance.
Okay.
I know that. I think New York is one of those places.
They just did a program, I think, that allows for doulas to be covered. Yeah.
New York?
Yeah.
New York.
That's dope.
Mm-hmm. So New York is one of the leading states for that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Some insurances will reimburse. So if you submit an invoice, you wouldn't get it paid for up front. But a lot of doulas are not. They don't take insurance because they're not covered by insurance. So it's it's an out-of-pocket price for some doulas, unless you have like doulas who work alongside of the hospital, community doulas, those kinds of things that may be able to support and be covered through insurance because they work for the hospital or something. But you can always submit for reimbursement, like a claim.
Okay.
Sometimes.
And then the range that someone should look for with price.
Yeah. So I would say on average, somewhere between, this is a very wide range also.
Yeah.
Somewhere between like $800 and like upwards of like $3,000. So depending on where your budget is, you can always figure out, does this doula offer payment plans? What am I getting with this doula? Because if this person is not only providing me with support, but they're providing me with education and they're providing me with postpartum support, breastfeeding support, those are all things to be considered in terms of like when you're looking at an overall cost of the doula and how long are they going to be able to support you in this journey.
Got it. That's important too, because we had you when we were pregnant, we had you at the hospital, and then we obviously have you here, and because not pregnant anymore. So
and even 6 weeks post, and we was in the hospital for a while, so that's a lot of time. Yeah. And it's funny because my insurance didn't cover doula. They did cover midwives though. Yeah. They're like, we cover that, but we don't cover doulas. But if you have like a is it HSA, right, Tony, or FSA? If you have a HSA, which is like a health savings account, then you can pay for the services like that too. Exactly. So that's an option.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And you can also, this is for midwives because some insurances are not covering like midwives.
Okay.
If they are in the hospital setting, I think it's a little bit easier to get them covered.
Right.
But if they are out of hospital, some insurances are just not covering that. One of the things that I try to tell people, because cost can be very...
It determines a lot.
It determines a lot, yeah. I mean, obviously, depending on everybody's budget. But we didn't have, when we went out of hospital, we were really concerned about the cost. It was like, okay, this is a little bit expensive. However, C-section is also extremely expensive. That's
I've heard, thankfully, I hope to never experience that.
Yeah, let me just tell you, invest so you can reduce your risk of the bill, because the bill's going to come.
The bill's going to come. I was telling you know what's so funny? Some people don't even know that you get a bill. Some people assume that the insurance just cover it all. I'm like, no, ma'am.
No.
Depending on your insurance, yes, the cost may be lower. Definitely, that comes, but a bill is coming. It could be $30, it could be $2,000. Yeah. Something is coming.
Yeah, it's.
And there's a bill for everything. Everybody that walks in, there's a bill.
For sure. I was like, resident. I'm not paying for your school friend. Why are you
your school friend?
I'm not paying for that. So anyways, we got charged for the resident, but that's a whole nother story. But the bill's going to come. So what we were able to do, the birth center was able to help us with our insurance, and we were able to get an out-of-network exemption.
Okay.
So that's always something that I tell people if they're like, well, it's just super expensive, call your insurance. See if they are willing to do an out-of-network exemption, basically meaning that you would be responsible for your deductible, which in most cases is lower than the out-of-pocket cash price for some of these places, midwives, birth centers. So we were able to do that, and it ended up being the same cost as my hospital birth. So it was great that it worked out that way.
Yeah.
So.
How many children have you seen throughout this process?
Well, how long have you been a doula? Right.
I've been a doula for 1.5 years.
Okay.
And I have seen...
Or been a part of how many births?
Births, probably close to 40 at this point.
40.
Probably around there.
You use that reference a lot because when we speak about like our parents, our parents had us, I'm 33, so 33 years ago. So you don't remember anything, first of all. Second of all, Anthony always says, he's like, she or whoever this person is has seen probably 20 plus births. You've probably seen, if you have 3 kids, just 3.
Yeah.
So I think this person has a bit more knowledge than you. But yeah.
It's been a journey. I mean, I love it. And I will say I'm just very blessed to be in the role and to be able to do the role and provide the support that I provide, and have had the training and the mentorship that I've had up to this point, because, you know, of those 40, you know, almost 40 births at this point, like, I wouldn't say that, even though some birth plans changed, right? Because for medical reasons they had to change, I wouldn't say that I have any moms who are like seriously traumatized. Like, I just don't, even though they're, you know, we've had preemies, we've had to have C-sections, like very few. I can count on one hand how many times that's happened. But overall, like, those women were still in control. You know what I mean? Like, they exhausted all of their options. So I'm just grateful that this is what I get to do. I don't have to do it, but I get to do it. And I'm grateful for families like yourself who trust me in the journey, because it can be hard, right? Like, this is my baby, this is my body. And we're so protective over that. Yeah. That sometimes we can completely forget how to trust our intuition.
And then also just changing that mindset is big, because what we grow up with is what we know. It's like the doctor, the water breaking, the different things that we think we know, I should say, or that we've learned through other people, what they tell us, and then getting education that, no, that's the complete opposite. Like, wait, okay. So where did you hear that at? Yeah, sure, you can pass me some. Thank you. So yeah.
So I was gonna mention, you said almost 40 births. Seems like, you know, things have been going well, and on the business side of being a doula, so how does that work around your life? Because I know we had you for a full, I don't know how many hours we had you for. You're away from your family.
And you have 2 kids, and you're pregnant.
Congratulations to you as well.
Thank you.
So how does that work on the family side? You're running this business. It seems like it can be demanding at some points.
Oh, yeah.
But how are you running that with the family side of things too?
So the one thing I will say is both my husband and I are entrepreneurs.
Which is always good.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if you identify as that.
Yeah, I would say I identify as an entrepreneur. I would call myself an entrepreneur before I would call myself any sort of like influencer. I think I want to influence people, but in terms of the social media term of it, that's not my job. That's not my goal. But it helps that both of us are entrepreneurs, because while it's extremely difficult that both of us are entrepreneurs, because our schedules, as you know, it never stops. Like, work, you don't clock out. You don't ever clock out. So it's like you always can be doing work. And you have to work in order to provide for your family. So that's one thing that I feel like we have the understanding on together. But it is very demanding, because on the days that, you know, birth is unpredictable. I don't know how long I'm going to be at a birth. I also don't know when I'm going to be called out to a birth. I have some sort of idea, because I'll know when you're in early labor.
Yeah.
And I'm, okay, at that point, all right, getting kids' lunches ready, getting the everything packed, so it's really easy for my husband to like pick up and go and drop the kids off and do those kinds of things. So the balance is tough for sure, but the beauty of it is that I feel like I have a really supportive partner, and we've been able to provide or get some level of support, babysitters and things like that, to be able to kind of pick up when both of us are a little bit more in a demanding season of work, because we don't have family in Texas we don't have grandparents or anything like that can come just like come watch the kids and not have to go anywhere afterwards. So it is demanding. But I will say, and this is not unique to every single person, but the families that I work with, we work really well together. So there's even like for y'all's birth, while it may have felt super long for you, it could have been a lot longer for some doulas, because they might have shown up like, you might have gone to the hospital earlier, and they would have showed up with you at the hospital earlier. Yeah. And we would have been there way longer than we were there. You know what I mean? So I feel like a lot of my families who I get a chance to work with aren't really laboring that long to where it's really causing.
I think you were with us. Maybe it would be like 21 hours because if you got there, maybe if you got there 12 on Sunday, then I deliver like 7 something on Monday. Then felt very long.
Yeah, I know it definitely felt long. Trust me. I mean, again, we did what your body and your mind and your intuition told us that we needed to do, right? So I think ultimately, like, yes, there are going to be longer birth experiences. You're a first-time mom. That's to be expected. True. But in terms of the business, I also just don't overpack my schedule either.
I was going to ask, how do you space it out?
Yeah, I don't take on more than like 4 births a month, which 4 is, a lot.
It seems like a lot.
Yeah, because if one person overlaps.
Yeah, but, thankfully that hasn't really happened that often. So I try to space them out to the point where, like, 2 women, there's less of a chance that 2 women would go into labor on the same time, on the same day. But on average, it takes around 3 to 4 births a month. There are some doulas who do double that. I have no clue how they do it, but my hat is off to them. When you have kids, that's a little bit more challenging. But because of that, I also limit the amount of births that I can take on for the sake of my mental and physical health.
Oh, yeah.
For the sake of my kids and for the sake of my husband, so that I'm not throwing like, hey, gotta go. Might see you in 24 hours.
Might not.
Might not. Who knows? Can't do that to
Good
him
luck.
like too often.
Right.
So he's been really flexible.
And then all the women that you support, because I remember when we spoke, you had an option of virtual support versus coming in person.
Yes.
So not everyone is in person, right?
So that also helps too, that I'm virtual.
Okay.
I mean, at the end of the day, when I'm on the call with that family, if I'm on Zoom with that family,
you're on
it's
with
like
them.
I'm not at home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the good thing about that when it comes to just like sustainability for my business is that cutting out the drive time to and from helps from a family perspective. But, those hours of like I'm there at the house with the family, whether I'm in person or virtual, like I'm solely with that family.
Yeah.
Being at home, definitely makes it a little bit more flexible because let's say, for example, like you slept for a while, right? There was a time I think you slept for like 6 hours, right? Leading into when you push the baby out. Well, for those 6 hours, if I'm virtual, I can, multitask at that point. Because the woman is sleeping, I may not have to just sit and watch her.
Yeah.
Sleeping for 6 hours, but I'm still going to be with that family for the 6 hours. You know what I mean? So if I don't know, if there's an emergency, I have a little bit more access to support other things if I needed to. I've never had to do that, but it gives a little bit more flexibility in that regard, or backup doulas, right? If something were to happen, I have backup doulas, and that's easy for anybody to just jump onto Zoom and support that family.
And how many backup doulas do you have?
Right now, I just have one.
Okay.
Well, 1.5. The half is she's pregnant, so I can't really.
She's a half.
Her. I can't call her right now. She's about to have a baby, but so normally 2.
Normally 2. Got it. And did you go virtual because of COVID? Yeah.
Well, that was an accident, but yes.
Yeah.
I did not start off my career thinking I was going to be a virtual doula, but my first birth, which was my sister-in-law, she's out of state, and we were going to be going home for the holidays, and I was going to be there for a month so that I could just be there during my on-call time frame for her. And she ended up going into labor at 36 weeks. She was supposed to give birth at a birth center. She ended up going into labor at 36 weeks, and I was still in Texas because I don't go on call until they're 38 weeks. And so it was in the height of COVID, and this was in 2020, in the height of COVID. And obviously, I could have jumped on a plane, but they were only taking one person in the hospital, and it was either me or her boyfriend, and I was not going to replace her boyfriend. So we had to adjust and shift right away. And I was like, all right, we're just going to get on FaceTime. And that was my first birth, which happened to turn into a virtual birth. And she was at the hospital for 6 hours and had her baby and unmedicated, and it was great. So I was like, okay,
this is possible.
This could work. This could really work. So I just kind of put it out there to see if people would be interested in it. And people did jump on that opportunity. And that's kind of where the virtual thing started.
I always want the full package.
Yeah.
Of course
My
you
husband
do.
says, you want the most expensive.
Of course you do.
I mean, it's.
I'm like, you're
nice
in
to have another
Dallas,
set of
great.
hands.
So
If you're in Dallas, perfect.
So we're virtual. Is the boyfriend or is the spouse holding the phone? Is the phone on a stand? Is it a tripod?
We usually use like a phone stand.
Okay,
Now
got
again,
it.
this was all not planned.
Unplanned.
Yeah.
Yep.
So in his case, he was just finding anywhere he could set
Just
his
sit the
phone
phone
up.
down.
Yeah. So that was like had to be.
Not many people just have phone stands unless you do videos,
unless
right?
you do videos. So I always tell my virtual clients, like, hey, I need you to order a phone stand or whatever device you're going to be using. I need something to where you can just easily just move me around.
Got it.
So I can see mom in every position that she moves into. So it's really simple on the partner. But for that birth, it was like, hey, her water broke first too. Her water broke, and she also was on her way to the hospital. She had no contractions, and I'm like, I think you should go home. It's like 1 a.m. Go home and go to sleep. And so she went home. I was like, just give yourself some time, see if your body will go into labor, which it did.
It did, yeah.
And she fell asleep. She went into labor, or her contraction started, about 2 hours later. They picked up really quickly. She went to the hospital after that. She was at a 5 when she got to the hospital, and then she had her baby 6 hours later.
Wow.
So
Quick, it was
I
ready.
didn't have any time to be like, do you have a phone stand?
Yeah.
It was like, no, just get me on FaceTime, and I need to be able to see you guys at all times. And it worked out because, she was young. She was a young mom, and the hospital staff and nurses really tried to coerce her into a lot of things that she wasn't comfortable with, and she and her boyfriend held their ground. Even when the providers, after she had her baby, came in and shamed her for not agreeing with their decision, even though the baby was fine. So I'm happy that I was able to support them in that way. But it opened my eyes to be like, no, more people need this support, even if it's just virtual.
Yeah.
So
that's very important about that support aspect in there, because I mean, this is on topic but off topic. We didn't know that you could. I didn't know that you could have music playing during your birth.
It's something so simple, right? But it's just kind of like, why can't you? It's just it's just music. It's not interrupting anything, right?
Our daughter was born to Beyonce. We didn't realize that the first song we played in her belly was the same song she was born to.
Yeah.
Was it Beyonce?
It's the song she did for
Lion
King Richard.
Oh, King Richard.
I don't remember the name of it, but the song she did for the King Richard movie.
I remember our conversations. I thought we were going to be dancing to Beyonce most of the whole thing.
I forgot about
I didn't remember it
until like the very
The doctor was like, well, didn't you want Beyonce playing? I'm like, oh yeah, go ahead, put it on. Put it on.
Yeah. Like, you sure you don't want to
You sure you don't want it? I'm like, no, I don't want any
I didn't want any sound.
I want Beyonce, I'm leaving it alone.
I'm willing to dance if you want to dance.
So Lonnie was born to Beyonce, which is fantastic.
That's hilarious.
Obviously, Janoka's a huge Beyonce fan. So we're talking about education. We're talking about knowing more, and that's one thing we always preach about. You don't know what you don't know, but also how important is education. So when it comes to you in becoming a doula, you mentioned you wanted to teach people more about doulas and education. So what made you create this course, and what's inside of the course?
Oh my God, it's a lot. You can explain it, but it's a lot of it. I don't have
me.
No. It's so much information that you just don't know at all, I think is what it is. You just simply don't know. And it's like, oh, okay. Didn't know I could do that. Didn't know I could. And it makes you, like you say, empowered when you're going in to speak with your doctor, because I absolutely love my doctor. Like, he's from New York, so we vibe, we talk.
Yep.
But it is kind of like just telling you this is what it is. Like, okay, we're going to do this. See you in 2 weeks. No fault of his, maybe. I mean, I don't know, based on their education. But then going in and asking these questions ahead of time, maybe, or just having that information, I think lets them know that you know more.
Yeah.
And also that, okay, then she means business, but not in a negative way, though. Not any way that you're like questioning his, what he knows or anything like that, but just getting ahead of it. So that was big, that every appointment, like, okay, on week 32, we should be asking about this. And we're going to, when they take group B, this is what this means. And all these things that never heard of at all. I mean, I've never been pregnant, so maybe that's why. But certain things that I feel like people should know before even getting into this is in that course.
Yeah.
So you go ahead and say it. You go ahead and say it.
That should be a testimonial. We'll chop that up for you, make that a testimonial.
You go ahead and say it.
No, so before I pursued the doula space, it was like I just want to simply educate, because I formerly am a teacher, and I love teaching. And so I was like, well, I can bring this into the birth world. Like, there's childbirth education classes. I loved the childbirth education class that my husband and I went through the second time around, and how engaging it was. And I felt that was what I was given. You know, I added a lot more into my course than what I was taught in that course that my husband and I took. But even from the course that we took together, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Why didn't I know any of this? So the course itself is my attempt to reach and educate as many families as possible, because I'm only one person. I can't doula everybody, right? So I would love to, but I can't. And so this is my course is an attempt to be able to provide the same level of education and support that I provide my families, to give them the tools that they need to have a birth, the birth that they want, whether they have a doula or not. And I've seen a lot of families come out of this course and this program and do exactly what they wanted to do, just between the partner and the mama, because they both knew how to do it. The partner knew their role, the mom knew their role, they knew their rights, they knew their options, they knew how to say no confidently without being confrontational. So that, because I see birth as a very holistic experience, I wanted to prepare women from a holistic view. I don't think that you can only prepare somebody mentally. I don't think you can only prepare somebody physically. I think that there's a lot more that goes into it. Like, you can be the most fit person in the world. That was what I relied on my first time around. I was like, I'm fit. I work out every day. I eat well. I'm going to have endurance. It's going to be great. And the reality is I did have endurance, but I did not have mental endurance. I did not have mental stamina. I did not have any sort of mental strength when it came to birth. I just relied simply on my body. I was like, you got this, Chanel, you're strong, you can do this. But the reality was, like, I was not being smart about any of my movements. I was just moving. And there's, as you guys know, there's intentional movements behind when and how you're laboring. So I wanted to kind of create a course that helped families think like a doula at the end of the day. I want to give you the tools that if I was your doula, I would be saying, doing, guiding you in, so that you have that and you're equipped with that going into labor. You also need to know your options. I'm very, very firm in believing that even if you're having a home birth, you need to understand how to navigate a hospital birth too. You need to understand the medical interventions, because what if you get transferred?
Right.
What if you go into labor at 36 weeks?
Yeah.
Which the client that I had did, and then another mama who I've interviewed, her videos on my YouTube channel, she went from being in the hospital. We talked. She went through the course. She was like, I don't want to be in the hospital. She found a midwife, was doing a home birth, planned a home birth. Went into labor at 36 weeks.
Went back to the hospital.
had to give birth in the hospital, because she was really fearful of giving birth in the hospital. And so she ended up still having an amazingly beautiful birth experience, natural birth experience, exactly how she wanted. She just wasn't at home. So had she not known how to labor in the hospital and how to choose or refuse different medical interventions that were probably suggested to her, they could have been a completely different experience. So I have used this course to literally try to give families the step-by-step, the blueprint of like what you need to be fully prepared for the birth that you desire. And most of that is geared towards you having and knowing that you're capable of having a natural birth, but also knowing that there's no shame in any sort of medical intervention that you choose. I just want you to be informed about what you're choosing.
Yeah.
Not just because everybody has an epidural or because this and that. It's like, okay, if you're going to have the epidural and you understand the benefits and the risks, go for it. If that's what you want, just understand, like, yeah, things can slow down. So if your goal here is to have this baby as fast as possible, but then you choose to get an epidural, that may or may not happen the way you want it to happen. So as long as you know that and you're comfortable and at peace with that, or even choosing a C-section. I've had a client who chose a C-section, a scheduled C-section, over having a vaginal breech baby.
I've heard people say that. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm like nervous for them. Like, why do you want to go into surgery? But, you know, some women have, they want to keep things the same down there. And it's like, okay, well, it's your decision.
Yeah, and for hers, she had exhausted all of her options. We had done a gentle aversion. We did an aversion with the OB, which is them trying to help turn
Shift
the baby into the optimal position. And she knew we could go find a provider that would allow her to deliver her baby breech vaginally. Her baby did not like the version. The baby was like, no. I'm gonna stay right here where I've been comfortable for the last 9 months. Don't try to turn me. And because of that, she saw how her baby responded to the aversion. And for her, what brought her the most peace, even though she was also supposed to have an out-of-hospital birth, what brought her the most peace was to be able to have a scheduled C-section. And I was there with her during the C-section, and she said, I was like, how was it? She was like, it was so beautiful. It was so peaceful. It was painless.
Because she was like in control type of thing. She was in control.
She was very at peace about her decision. And I think, to me, that's what it's all about. It's not about, oh, I set out for a natural birth and I failed because I didn't have one. It's like, no, I made this decision. I chose to have the C-section. And it was I chose how I wanted the C-section happen. We talk about that too. Like, what is your C-section plan? Had I had a C-section plan, maybe it wouldn't have been so traumatic for me. Yeah. You know?
Maybe if you had.
If the what ifs, right? Just planning for the what ifs. And so for her, you don't hear people talk about C-section being beautiful. Like, that's just not something you hear, you know? And that was her. She's like, it was so beautiful. Oh my gosh, it was so amazing.
I can see that. If some people know, I mean, we have some friends, they had twins, and it was just like, okay, today's the day. We're walking in, we have a time, we know, all right, the baby's here, and it may take a little longer for the mother to kind of heal.
For sure.
But you kind of, if you're a type A and want to be in control, that's kind of the way to go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's all about just being informed and making the decision that's best for you, but doing it from an educated standpoint.
And that educational piece is so important, especially as a spouse in this process. You sometimes feel like you can't do too much. You're like, all right, well, I'm sitting there waiting, but that educational portion that you gave us had me really involved in the conversation. I'm sitting there. Me and Janoka were like, all right, we're going to do an hour tonight, 2 hours tonight, and we're going to do the course, homework with the course. And
there's homework with the course, too. Yeah,
worksheets,
downloads.
Yeah, we're going to write down our plan.
Y'all got to apply it, okay?
We're going to write down our birthing plan, what Beyonce song we're going to play, what snacks we're going to bring. So that was very important.
What to pack in the hospital bag.
And I felt like I was doing as much as I could with that information because we can only do so much. But I was like, all right, well, I can help pack the bag. I can help do this. I can help do that. So it made me feel really involved going through that, having that information too.
Yeah. And do you feel like everybody can benefit from a doula?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're open to it.
If you're open to it,
it's all based on people's personality.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to be coached, then no, it's not going to be beneficial for you.
Yeah.
But if you are willing to be coached and you are willing to learn from people who you maybe see as an expert in the space, then absolutely. You know, if you're a person who thinks that the doula is going to do everything for you, then I wouldn't say hire a doula because we can't birth your babies for you. We would all love to, right? But we can't birth your baby for you. We're here to empower you and support you so that you can do it. So I think that if you're open to that coaching, if you're open to that kind of support, and you're willing to be educated and open to something completely different, like you said, because your family, like the reality is, at least the way that I teach, it's going to be completely different than most of the things that you've ever heard about birth.
Completely.
And you have to really shift and unlearn things.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to unlearn things, you know, then it's not going to, at least with me, it wouldn't work. Because I don't feel like the way I believe in the way that I teach, I believe in the type of birth that I prepare women for, you know, the type of birth that they want. And if somebody still does not believe that that's possible, then it's going to be really challenging to get you to a place where you're going to have an experience that you want to have. I'm never going to say, like, be prepared for pain. I'm just not. That's just like the buzzword, and we're just talking about pain right now. But that's the one thing, well, it's going to be really painful. I'm not going to tell a woman that. And that's not me lying to her. It's that it doesn't have to be that way, because there's a lot of things that we can do to help alleviate the pain that you could experience if you're not prepared. Trust me, I've had a painful birth before. I know that they exist. I'm never going to tell somebody that they don't exist. But should I have had a painful birth? No, who wants to have a painful birth experience? If I can do something to help you avoid that, let me do that for you. But if you don't believe that that's true, then you're going to have a painful birth. So I think you just have to, like I was saying before, you have to align with the person who you think is going to be the best to support you. I think everybody would benefit from that if they find that person for them.
And do you find that people use a doula twice, I wonder? Like, if I have a second baby, do people use a doula again?
I have a doula.
You have to do it for your third baby? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm a doula, and I'm going to hire a doula. I don't want a doula myself. That's too much thinking.
I was like, yeah, I guess.
So would they just use you, like, would I just use you, like, towards the end for, like, the delivery? Because you can't
I hired my doula already.
I guess, the education part of it.
You can.
I guess. It depends how far apart.
Every pregnancy is different, you know?
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
Like, for me, this is the third time around. but I'm going through the exact same process that you went through. So I'm going through my own course as a pregnant person. I'm taking myself out of the doula role, and I am going through it with my husband. I'm like, hey, we're starting the new program on next Thursday. And I'm like, you're going to sit down with me and we're going to go through this together. I'm going to teach it, right? But we're going to talk about it as if this was like what we were doing in our second pregnancy. And we're sitting down and being taught. And my doula also has a program.
Okay.
She's already taken us through it in our second pregnancy, but it's evolved since then.
Got it.
So she's going to go take us through it again. And for me, it's like, yeah, I'm familiar with the information, but it's never bad to have my refresher, to repeat, to make sure I'm comfortable with it, to make sure my husband's comfortable with it. So I think that it's always beneficial to have a doula. But, you know, my husband's like, you know, I could be your doula, right? Like, I know all the things, right? And I know all the things. I know you know, but also we have 2 kids now. So I don't want to put all of that responsibility on you either.
Very true.
So, you know, I think it just depends on where the person is at. If I was in a place where I didn't have a doula, like let's say, for example, the doula that I've worked with in the past, she wasn't available, you know, I might explore other options and see what exists out there. But if I didn't have a doula, I would have to work really, really, really closely with my husband to make sure that he was able to provide the level of support that I needed.
Got it.
Because if that wasn't the case, I need him, like I would have to find somebody else who was going to be able to help keep me in my birth zone. And usually a doula is able to help do that. And if he wasn't able to do that, I'd have to bring somebody else in who was.
Okay.
So, yeah.
With the 3rd child on the way, where do you see your business going right now? Do you still want to keep doing the in-person stuff? Or are you moving more towards virtual? Where is your business going?
Yeah, I'm trying to be flexible because I don't know what life with 3 kids is going to look like. I've only heard. So I'm also trying to educate and prepare myself for that too.
Yeah.
But because I love birth, I thought about taking off the rest of the year when it comes to one-on-one clients. But I don't know if I can go
the whole year
away that far and that long. So I am limiting myself, though. I'm going to really limit the number of people. I might take on 1 or 2 births once I feel comfortable out of maternity leave. I might take on 1 or 2 births in the fall. But I will say, you know, moving forward, because I do plan on having my baby home for the first year, which will limit the amount of births that I can actually support. So my primary focus is going to be in my new program, which is being able to provide a level of virtual education and support from a doula perspective for families who don't have doulas, may not be able to afford them, may not have access to them, but to be able to virtually support families every single week and educate them the same way that I've educated you guys, but also be able to kind of check in and provide that level of support for them weekly. So that's kind of where I plan to spend most of my time and energy so I can reach more families, but not at the rate where I have to leave my home for births, if that makes sense. So it's a little bit of a hybrid from what I've done before, and just simply providing the course materials and education for people. My goal is to take it to the next level and to be able to also provide those families with a level of virtual doula support to prepare them for the day. Obviously, I won't be with them on the day of their birth, but giving them enough support and education and scenarios to kind of work through so that they feel equipped and supported for the day of their birth.
Okay.
So that's the goal, but you know, we'll see.
I know we're getting towards the end, but there is 2 more questions. One that comes up because we post our postpartum doula. What's the difference between you and a postpartum doula?
So I'm a birth doula.
Okay.
My primary role is to kind of help you prepare for your birth and the immediate postpartum. That is my role. A postpartum doula helps you in that 4th trimester in that transition. So while I help and support you for those first couple of weeks, postpartum doulas are trained and skilled in being able to support you on a different level from the healing aspect, mentally healing, emotionally healing, physically healing from the journey, supporting you, helping you guys get systems in place so that you can have a smooth newborn phase, which can be really overwhelming. Our postpartum doula was really helpful in helping me with breastfeeding and pumping. Obviously, as a birth doula, as a lactation educator, I can support you with that too. But it's also helpful to have somebody who's there in person with you. They can also do night shifts, and I think you guys might have taken advantage of that.
Oh, yes, we definitely did.
We've taken advantage of that too, and it's amazing to just have somebody to be able to support your family so that you can sleep.
Yes.
Our postpartum doula helped us with just a lot of newborn hack type things where make your life easier. This is how you bathe the baby. This is how you swaddle the baby. This is how you can set up your nursery so that's easier for you and not just cute. You know, this is how you and your husband can communicate together. This is, okay, you're dealing with this. My postpartum doula was the one who really started helping me heal from my C-section trauma that I didn't even really know existed until I was in the postpartum. So she also helped me with my postpartum depression, all those things. So she was really, really helpful. But as a birth doula, a lot of us, we support you in the immediate. Yeah. And then we, kind of encourage you and help you find the postpartum doula that can kind of help you in the next phase. Yeah.
Okay. And you had a question of
what you gonna ask?
Go ahead.
So you mentioned hacks. Your whole Instagram page is hacks, number one.
How did you grow the page? I mean, there's so much more we have to ask.
That's a whole nother episode. That's a whole nother episode. But you have so many hacks on your Instagram page. I'm going to let you tell them what your Instagram page is. But I also want that hack. I don't even know. Number one, I don't know why you didn't tell me she had an Instagram page. Because
I told you I found her from Instagram. Do you listen to me?
Well, I didn't go to the page.
You never went to the page.
I didn't go to y'all's page either, so I didn't know.
I never went to the page. I stumbled across the page.
Yeah.
And I saw this hack of you swallowing the baby.
The baby?
Yes. And I've been
holding the arms.
Alani,
if they're small enough. Yeah.
That's all Alani knows at this point. That's all she knows.
It works, right?
Can you explain what that hack is and how did you learn about it?
I learned about it from YouTube.
Okay.
There's a pediatrician out of California who this was it's not his claim to fame because he's a pediatrician. Yeah. But that is the video that a lot of people know him by. I don't really know how I came across it, to be honest with you, but it saved my life as a parent, that's for sure. Our daughter, I didn't find this until my second baby. She was just a crier. That's all she did. Cried. I'm like, I don't know what else you want. Give me everything.
Can you explain
But yes, this.
They can watch. They're watching on YouTube.
The baby's facing this way, right?
So the baby. I should have brought my baby, my fake baby. So sometimes babies, you do all the things, right? They're dry, they're fed, they're warm, they're
burped, everything.
All the things. You checked all the boxes, and the baby's just still irritable. Sometimes you can do some more things, figure out is their tummy hurting, are they constipated, whatever. But if not, or if so, sometimes you just need to get the baby calm to be able to try to figure out what's wrong. So because babies have been in this fetal position for 9 months, this is what they're used to. This is how they're used to being.
Arms crossed.
When they're out like this makes, they have this Moro reflex, which is why babies feel like they're falling. And why swaddling is really helpful.
She gets really
yeah. If you don't swaddle them, for some babies hate it, but most babies will be more calm when you swaddle them because it reminds them of being in the womb. Anyways, sometimes when babies are crying, you need to kind of help their bodies get into this position, similarly, and rocking, because that's also soothing, to help them calm down. So what you do is you will cross their arms across their chest, and you'll hold their arms in place with one hand, and then with your other hand, you're going to support underneath their butt, and then you're rocking them in this 45-degree angle. And usually it's like a
immediate. Trust me.
Immediate response.
I know.
And it is
He's been doing it ever since.
And then, so between that and then there's a few other ways that you can help the baby and just kind of help them soothe themselves and calm down. But it's
game changer.
It is game changing. Game changing. And I feel like if more parents knew that, we would avoid so many of our own meltdowns. Yeah. Because our baby, we're I've done everything. Why aren't you? It doesn't work every time. But it is definitely a little hack you can always use.
Not a little hack, a big hack.
It's a real big
Trust
hack.
It's a big hack.
A big little hack. Yeah.
Every time I see her, she's in this position.
Yeah, you're she must have been crying.
All the time.
You just got to switch arms because your forearm will get real tired. Yeah. And especially as they get bigger.
Oh, my God.
As I get bigger, it's ooh. Okay.
God. But before the hack, so the question I had was, how can the non-birthing parent be most supportive postpartum?
That's a great question. So this is like exclusive. Okay? This is real exclusive.
Okay.
This is not evidence-based. I want to be clear about that because I do talk about the things that I share being evidence-based. This is not evidence-based. This is Chanel's theory that I'm exploring, doing my own research on.
Okay.
But I feel like, for one, you have to both communicate, right? And this is something you have to do before you have a baby. We're not trying to plan for how to be most supportive after the baby gets here. We'll adjust and modify based on what you need when the baby gets here. But we can discuss and plan, like in birth, we can plan for these things ahead of time because there's a good chance that what your needs are now, while you're going to have another person involved in the mix, your personal needs are probably going to be fairly similar as they are in the third trimester, right? I want you to like tell me I'm beautiful, or I want you to get me gifts, or like whatever your love language is, probably will be very good in serving her in the pregnancy as it would in the postpartum. So what I always try to tell my clients and my mamas is think about how you guys would operate in a long distance relationship. If you're in a long distance relationship, what would you be doing to make her feel full, loved, supported, seen? What would you do for him? Because the reality is we can kind of grow apart a little bit in the postpartum because your primary focus is mostly the baby. And then his primary focus is like, how do I support her and the baby? Because she's breastfeeding, so I can't really do anything when she's breastfeeding until we get a bottle. So I feel like whatever routine you can figure out, like, okay, would it be helpful if I got meals? If I cooked for you, would that be helpful? Would it be helpful if I just came and rubbed your feet? Would it be helpful if I know you get really overwhelmed, so would it be helpful if when you're getting really overwhelmed, the baby's crying, like I take the baby and just let you go drive for 30 minutes or go to Target? You know, like what are the things right now without a baby involved that help you feel calm, relaxed? Same thing for you. And how do we kind of put that into some sort of framework that we can utilize and go to in the postpartum? There's a lot of other things that partners can do, like in the middle of the night, if you're breastfeeding, you're using a haka or you're pumping or something like that. My husband, one of his jobs in the middle of the night was to take the milk that I was pumping or that was, coming out in the haka and to go put it in the freezer so I didn't have to get out of bed. So that was one job of his. I also had a toddler, so my husband's job was to be primarily on toddler duty. Another one of my husband's jobs was to make sure that for the first 2 to 3 weeks that like meals were ready. We did a lot of freezer meals ahead of time, so it took some work off of his plate. But those are simple ways that I feel like partners can support. And then back to the love languages thing, this is my little theory and research right now, is what would it look like if you guys just thought of a list of things that you can do to serve your partner from their love language, right? Because whatever, and you have to take this in your pregnancy. Like third trimester, you have to take it again, even if you've taken it before, because we've changed. We're going through a completely different and new journey. So I'm proposing and challenging my clients and my families to take the love languages test in the third trimester. And I've come up with this after we were together.
What part of the course was that?
Sorry, that was not in the course. And this is a new discovery for me. But it came from this epiphany that I had about my husband and I, and he shares it in the partner course. That's also involved in the course. He, in our first postpartum experience, he was doing all the things. He was like getting meal services, he was getting cleaning services, taking a lot of the things off my plate. We had a postpartum doula. He was like doing all the things to try to like take responsibilities off my plate, which was amazing. But all I wanted him to do was rub my feet. That's it. I just wanted him to rub my feet. I didn't care about the meals. They were great. I was appreciative. I mean, those are all things that bring me peace, right? But I kept asking for the same thing.
Right.
And he was like, it's not that big. In his mind, it's like, it's just a foot rub. Like, it's just, it is what it is. Like, but I got you meals, but you got lunch and you got dinner. And he didn't say those things. But, that was kind of like his approach. He's like, I'm trying to do everything that I can do. And I was like, but I've been asking you for the one small thing.
Yeah.
And it was like a love language thing. It's like, I just want physical touch and, like some sort of affection and, acts of service, right? Those are my love languages. And he was missing it. He was missing the whole, and I'm like, the foot rub would have gone way further for me
than the groceries.
You know what I mean? Because that might have been something that like we had to talk through and figure out later on. But I wonder if I would have felt fuller and closer in that season, like he was hearing me, if he would have just responded to the love language. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's my theory right now. We'll see how it turns out.
Yeah, I agree with all the things you say. The diaper changes, because I mean, right now he does more diaper changes than me, mainly because I'm the one that can breastfeed. And
exactly
at the beginning, when we just postpartum out of the hospital, like he would get the baby out the bassinet just to bring me to breastfeed, because it was so hard for me to like get up, sit up. I'm already uncomfortable.
Exactly.
So I think all of those things that you mentioned, along with the diapers, the milk, all that type of stuff, that goes a long way.
That
is the non-birthing parent.
Non-birthing parent. I hope you was listening.
Yeah.
Because that is very important. You dropped so many gems for us.
Oh yeah.
Today.
Thanks.
And we could go on and on. Yeah.
Not even just today, this whole process.
Yes.
Even after the process. And we definitely appreciate you being here. Tell the fine folks how they could find you, your course. We also got her to give us a little discount on the course if you guys want it.
We'll drop it in the show notes.
In the show notes.
Yes.
Tell them how they can find you and just, get involved in your world.
Yeah.
Yes. So YouTube, Instagram at A Working Mama, AWERKINGMAMA. I post daily for the most part, and on YouTube weekly. I also have a new program starting this month where we will be combining my love for doula services and my love for education for families who are all over the world, to be able to provide the same level of support that I have for this family every single week, along with the education to help you and your partner feel supported and prepared for a confident and empowered birth experience. So that's the main
All of those links will
take you everywhere you need to go. There's
lots
of freebies
I'm surprised you're not on TikTok. I think you would go farther.
Oh, yeah, TikTok, yeah.
Are you on there?
Yeah, but barely.
Okay.
Now you got to post that video.
No, you will go far.
You got to post that video on TikTok.
Oh,
the video.
Okay.
All the videos you posted.
That will go viral.
But
all
TikTok
videos
is like a hit or miss for me.
You got to keep
doing it. It is a hit or miss,
but
when it hits.
Exactly. But I'm like,
so I know your videos do really well on Instagram, so I'm sure it'll do great.
Yeah. And follow her on TikTok.
Yes, follow me on TikTok. Thank you. Help me get up there.
Help you get up there. Yeah, so thank you guys for supporting once again. Make sure that you're subscribing, you're commenting, leaving reviews, sharing with others, especially this episode. I know so many people asked us in our stories, what is a doula? Tell me more. So I'm going to just drop this link every time somebody asks. So thank you for listening in.
Appreciate you guys being here. Peace.
This has been an episode of the Hartzog Hustle Podcast. We hope you enjoyed. Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite listening platform. And follow Anthony and Janilka on Instagram at The Hartrimony. That's TheHartrimony. Keep hustling, baby. Keep hustling, baby.
Get that money. Get that money.